Welcome back, I'm Tedward, and welcome to the all-new 11th generation of the Honda Civic Type R, hopefully what I'll be trading my 11th gen Civic Si for in the near future. This generation, obviously a lot more grown up than the 10th gen, doesn't have the anime haircut, but it still has a pretty raucous wing on the back of this. Now, I kind of wish this was like paint matched, but anyway, we don't have all of the information about this when it comes to power or pricing, but we do know that it has the same 2-liter turbo engine of the 10th gen. However, when we look under the hood, we're gonna see some pretty distinct changes that I think are gonna be major in the way of cooling. Obviously, the car is going to be more rigid, more aerodynamic, and what's great about this car is just from the front, you already see that it's more muscular than the SI. You can see some of these vents, and this hood scoop is a major component that I think is going to make a huge difference on making this a more trackable vehicle, because anybody who really pushed a 10th gen on a racetrack was running into overheating issues very quickly, and despite putting in oil coolers, radiators, new intakes, all that good stuff, we still had major issues trying to keep this thing cool on track. And the big solution that all of this 10th gen guys figured out, hood scoops. They were just taking their hoods off, cutting big holes in them, and making room for it. So Honda has listened. It's great when the engineering team and the marketing team team up and make something look really good that's also incredibly functional. I am in love with this style right now. It's got that old school sort of like M3, E30 M3 box fender thing to it, but it's cool because you can really tell how much wider that is because of where this headlight meets. Down here, monster brakes. This is one of the big reasons why I want this car in my life, because although my Honda Civic is not very fast, and this is clearly faster than the SI, I don't have these brakes, and this is something that I'm gonna want on a racetrack when I use it for kind of, you know, just occasional track days. And then down the side, we've got this vent here, which is gonna keep air moving around that wheel, allowing it to be a little more slippery, and then back to a little bit of downforce on the rear end with a not so modest wing. I absolutely love that they maintained the 3 tailpipes down here, which will open and close according to what you're doing. I'm pretty psyched about that. I'm sure this is gonna sound a little better than the last generation. And this diffuser is really aggressive. It's just amazing when a Civic can look this good. And from the back, you can just tell how wide it is. I hope that this stance is coming off on video, because when you see this in real life, when you actually get behind this car, it is very wide. It definitely has an aggressive look, sort of like a Subaru STI is clearly not a base Impreza. In the back, we've got a big car cover back here. This is still a pre-production car, but you know, it's a hatchback. That's one of the things you do not get in the SI that I really like about this car, because I do think that the hatchback style of the Civic, the 11th gen Civic, is just more emblematic of what Honda's doing versus the sedan. The sedan has a little more of like an Audi A3 vibe to it, and this hatchback definitely looks a little more appropriate. Back here, got our little cover so we can have some privacy when we put expensive things in the trunk and close it up. But these 60/40 rear seats fold down, which is great. And with all of this space, I anticipate being able to put a whole set of racing tires, your jack, all your tools to go out for some pretty aggressive track days. The rear wiper is actually something I genuinely appreciate about this car, although it doesn't look very tall. I feel like it's probably only gonna come up to here, but we'll see what that looks like in action when we get it. But it also has what looks like a pretty aggressive washer, which I think is kind of funny. But I always appreciate a rear wiper. I always think the rear wiper deletes on 911s were lame. You gotta have that wiper. Pretty typical stuff back here. We won't look at that, but 91 recommended. Don't know if that will be the case, assuming it will, because that's the same as the previous generation. To the rear seats. When we get into this interior, the first thing you notice is the red. There is red carpeting. The whole bottom of this car is red. And then the Alcantara inserts here and here are definitely premium over the Civic Si. Our seats. Well, what you'll notice differently about the seats in the Type R compared to the SI, there is no rear armrest. They do not care about the comfort of your passengers while you're flogging them around on street or track, but there are cup holders down here. So if you are doing long drives, bring yourself a pillow for those rear passengers so they're not stranded there. These seats, when we sit in them, I'm really excited to feel how these are, but there's that passage for harnesses, because if you wanted to put some sort of brace in the back and then put yourself in a 6-point harness, I'm sure that is something you can arrange in this vehicle. But there is no room for a middle passenger. This is a 4-seater, big difference over the regular 11th gen. And up front, things are just looking more and more exciting up here. On the roof, there is no sunroof, no moonroof. This is a hard top. It is designed for rigidity, to be light, and to go fast. So some of those creature comforts are lacking. Like you'll see, there's no USB chargers and there's no AC vents back there either. But here we go, up front, beautiful red seats. No mistake that you are in a Type R because it is emblazoned across this in Alcantara. And what I'm psyched about with this Alcantara is that it's gonna hold you in. It's kind of like Velcro, right? But you've still got these nice big side bolsters on your body and on your legs. So that's gonna be great. And it's really not that hard to get in and out of, which I genuinely appreciate about this vehicle because it's going to be your daily driver that you can also use for occasional track use. Steering wheel, beautiful leather. I think this is I don't know, I could be crazy. I don't know if it's exactly the same as the Civic Si. Maybe it's exactly the same as the Civic Si, but this is not chrome, this is black. Hopefully that sticks around in the production version because I really like that. And then no red around the HVAC system. So that's just chrome, a little classier, looking good. And then we've got our 6-speed manual transmission with this beautiful shift knob. Now, I don't know if this is identical to the SI shifter. It feels a little bit shorter, definitely a little bit shorter. So hopefully we'll get to really compare those head to head later. Drive modes, you've got your plus R mode, which I like. You don't just go straight into the individual modes. The plus R mode is gonna change your screen and get you all that stuff. Typical infotainment system here, which we like. That's something that I've grown very familiar with in my SI and I really enjoy. But man, I just find this to be a really lovely place to be, and I love the Civic. So this one has the Bose system. You're not getting anything other than that. Type R coming up on our screen. Beautiful stuff. So I already know what this is probably going to sound like from an infotainment system standpoint because we know how the Bose sounds on the SI, and it's very good. It's not as good as the ELS 3D Studio in the Integra. However, this holds up really well above the base, and I genuinely enjoy using it. We don't get a sunglass holder like you do in an Integra, and like I said, you don't get a sunroof. So it is a little bare bones in some respects, but that is what you should expect out of your Type R. You do get wireless charging, so that is, of course, a nice feature to add. Now that I have the Type R key, we can take a look at this display just a little bit. Let's see if we can get it into accessory mode. We've got our fully glass display, which I'm really excited about because I love it on the Integra. Close this up. Got our drive modes, individual mode. And what I love about this car is that we're seeing this tachometer, which is very cool, very reminiscent of the Honda S2000, and it's giving us valuable data down here. We're getting like oil temps, water temps, pressures. That's good stuff. Is that an intake air temperature? See, this is exciting because you're actually going to be able to monitor things in this car. And on the left, you're getting a water temp over there as well, which is always going to stay there, which you do not get on the Civic Si. Up top, I am seeing a whole bunch of LEDs, and that indicates to me we've got some pretty mean shift lights, and I love a good shift light. And the fact that it's not just integrated into the LCD display, they're actually lights up here. That's exciting because it's a much more race car than we even deserve. But this car is supposed to go head to head with some of the heaviest hitters. It's front wheel drive. We know it is probably going to have about 325 horsepower, not announced yet, but Japan dropped the ball a little bit when they released some things. But again, unofficially, this is going to be probably about 325 horsepower, the most power in a production Honda ever. Let's take a look under the hood, because this is where I think there's some exciting speculation that can take place. Now again, none of this is like released. We don't have all of the data yet, but if we get under here, first we can see the shape of what's going on with this hood scoop underneath to probably release heat, which I love. And then under here, we've got the carbon fiber shroud as our valve cover, or our valve cover, I suppose. It looks very cool, but this is what I'm most interested in, because overheating was the biggest issue that we found on Type Rs going forward from the last generation. And in this generation of this engine, they've clearly revamped a whole bunch of stuff. So this intake looks different, but most notably right here, this looks like a heat sink of sorts. So hopefully that's going to keep that charge temp, that intake air temp, ultra low despite being directly over that exhaust and turbo. So all in all, seeing this car in person, in the flesh, definitely making me more and more excited for it. It looks fantastic in competition white. I don't know if I'll even get my pick of a color, if I'm able to even get my hands on one in the near future. But I know that I want it, and I know that the pricing should come in probably around $40,000, which I'm really hoping I can snag it for without too much of a dealer markup. So thank you guys so much for watching, liking, commenting, and subscribing. I'm gonna put this away, and I'm gonna go drive the Honda Civic HPD race car out here at Nashville Super Speedway and have a little fun. Don't forget to respect the drive, and I'll see you in the next one. And up front on this front grille, that R is going to be red. So that is not gonna be a blacked out thing. So this will have plenty of heritage R badges in red.